Aloha, listeners. Welcome to Lovelight Speaks. You are in for a treat. Let me share a little bit about today's guest, Eric Klos. Eric has 30 years of clinical practice as a holistic healthcare practitioner with Premed coursework from Bellevue Community College and the University of Washington, a Doctor of Chiropractic from Western State University, a certified clinical nutritional degree, as well as a Diplomat in advanced laboratory analysis from the International and American Association of Clinical Nutritionists. His driving force behind being the lack of coherence between the Western and naturopathic arenas. He co-founded Moss Bay Health Center, where he served his local community for over 30 years until his retirement. Eric and I met what seems to be a lifetime ago. He has been a steward and an empowering force for my personal path. Both he and his amazing wife, Brenda, have become incredibly cherished soul tribe over the decades. And today, he is here to share his wisdom with us. Welcome, Brother Eric. I am truly grateful for your presence in my life and for the opportunity to highlight these jewels of insights that you have acquired over the years of being in service to the well-being of others.
Well, thank you. And I'm flattered that you want to interview me. So
It's a joy. Yeah, and again, welcome to the show. I know that you have so much in your heart to share, and I'm looking forward to what comes to the surface today. Let's start with, what would you say is that your primary takeaway for the 30-year career that you've had in the health and wellness industry?
that's a big question. There is so much. I guess probably what most comes to mind is how lucky I was. I kind of stumbled into it, and so I feel very fortunate when I talk to other friends and people I meet about their career choices and their kind of reality where they are in business world or on a computer screen or whatever it was. And I got to basically meet people and touch people and get to know them, and sometimes on a pretty intimate level. And things have evolved over the years. 40 years ago, the information was not available back like it is now with the internet, as far as what's nutraceuticals and therapies and understandings of biochemistry and so on. So back then it was a lot of work, and it was good work. And I feel fortunate to be a part of it. I think, I hopefully made a good impact on people's lives. And when we're in school, they said that, 80% of the people that you meet or you work on, you're gonna help them. You're gonna fix them. 10% you may fix. You may help a little bit, or send them in the right direction, and 10% you won't. So they're not all wins, but if you can hit that 80% mark, you've done well. And I think at our clinic we did that. We had a good group, and we had not just chiropractic, but naturopaths there, acupuncturists, massage therapy, mental health counseling, yoga, which you were part of. Back when I first started, there really wasn't a holistic approach. It was kind of a new word, 40 years ago, and got to be part of that movement, I guess, a little bit, you might say. It was just incredibly rewarding. I can't imagine having a different life or different path, than that. And I guess that's my answer.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I like that. And it really feels like it's coming from your heart, and I appreciate that. What do you feel is essential for individuals as far as self-educating when it comes to the context of their wellness, their optimal wellness?
Well, I mean, for me, as a chiropractor, I could just do chiropractic, walk in there and adjust people and call it good. But nutrition to me was always vitally important. Yeah, a big part of it. Back in the day, it was always, the kind of almost a cliche is always start with the gut. It's always start with the gut. No matter what your health problem is, start with the gut. The flora, the what you put into your body, and so on. Nutrition is the foundation of that. It can be a bit challenging because nowadays there's so much information available, and you hear one thing on a podcast or you see a bombardment of ads, just like on television. There's hundreds of ads of what medications are out there. Well, same thing with nutrition too. This vitamin, this new miracle thing here, and it gets confusing. So I think to start with the basics, whole food. I kind of got into this years ago. At a young age, my mother and father came from Germany. They didn't have a lot of money, so and my mother always cooked. So we started off with real basic food and all homemade. We really couldn't afford processed food, so that was actually a good thing. So I learned nutrition there. Turns out in our country, you actually have to basically pay to get sick. It costs money to buy processed foods and things that aren't good for you. I mean, being healthy is actually pretty easy and pretty inexpensive. So the foundations, and one thing I like to kind of relate things to is nature. Nature provides all that we need, air, water, food, and shelter. And I think if people eat seasonal and regional, in what area you're in, so certain things in the springtime when you come off winter, you have leafy greens and berries and things come into season that give you more vitamins. And when things get hotter in the summertime, you might live in a warm environment where there's more water-based things like watermelons and so on. In a colder environment, you might have more nuts and seeds. And so nature kind of provides what you need for the upcoming season, and then look at nature. Like, for example, the old term whole grain goodness. Whole grains are not natural. They're man-made. Years ago, some friends of mine, I hiked into this remote area. It's called the Grand Gulch off Keene Gulch. It was a pretty remote area where the Anastasi's used to live, and there was no footprints, from people. And there was some dwellings there, and the pottery was still there from 800 years ago. And we climbed up into these. We had to use ropes to get up into them. We found some of the old catches, and for example, there were still corn cobs there. There was no corn, the mice, people had eaten the corn, but the cobs are only that big. So we've taken that corn and made that out of it. And it probably took them 2,000 years to make it that big. So so grains really are natural, but what you do find is fruits and vegetables and roots, nuts occasionally. Animals and so on are out there and provided for us. So always start with nature. Things like dairy is not really a natural product. Again, kind of a cliche, but human beings only species that drink milk once they've been weaned from the mother. So try and just think about what you have in nature. Trying to think how to answer your question. It's a bit of a challenge for a person, without kind of a formal guideline, because again, we're marketed so heavily. And a problem we have now in our society is that a lot of these good companies are being bought up, by big pharma. You have to be kind of careful what you purchase is actually what you're getting, and fortunately, things like Amazon, you can get almost anything. There's still good companies out there like Thorne, Pure, things like that you can have confidence in. I think if I can try and give practical advice, there's all kinds of ads for people who want, energy. Everyone, more energy. There's energy drinks. People have chronic fatigue syndrome and on and on and on. Everyone wants energy. Well, I think the question would be to ask, well, what is energy? Not just energy about, the soul or your chi or your tungen, whatever you want to call it. But the fundamentals are, it's ATP. You need ATP for everything to function. And how you make ATP, and that's pretty much the only fuel source. I think your heart can burn lactic acid for fuel, but ATP is it. And so you have something called the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle is where you take fat, carbohydrate, and protein, and through the Krebs cycle, you make ATP. That occurs in the mitochondria. The mitochondria are throughout our entire body. Every cell has them. I think your heart has about 5,000 mitochondria per cell. your muscle cells have anywhere from like 500 to I think 1200. But the heart takes a ton of energy to keep beating every day, every moment of every day of your life. And so it relies upon lots and lots of mitochondrial function. So to start with, to go from, let's say, fat to ATP, you have to have cofactors to get there. And so some basics are you need magnesium. Magnesium is, a common supplement, but you have to have the right kind for it to work. So magnesium taurate is more for heart and for muscle energy production. Magnesium phenate is more for the brain. You need magnesium is one of your primary antioxidants for the brain, so you want magnesium phenate for brain. Magnesium citrate is good for constipation for the gut. So magnesium is crucial. Everyone knows about CoQ10. CoQ10 is vital. When I was studying for my Diplomat, we had to memorize a huge amount of stuff in the Krebs cycle. I could even show you a chart of it. It looks kind of complicated, but it's way more complicated than that. And the bottom line is, when you didn't know the answer to what the question was asking, you answer CoQ10. I mean, CoQ10 is basically fundamental, meaning you take anything, magnesium, and CoQ10. And then, B complex. People think, we heard about B12 and folic acid and so on. But you want to have the proper kind of Bs, and those are methylated, and you can get them on Amazon. Like the folic acid they put in bread actually is toxic, but methylfolate is good. So if you get methylated B vitamins, that's critical. So we're CoQ10, magnesium, B complex. We need L-carnitine to help make energy. So 2,000 milligrams of L-carnitine. We had a study in China, I think it was, where they took 2,000 people, kids, and fed them. Only difference was 2 grams of L-carnitine per day. They lost weight. So you're basically burning fat to make energy. Alpha lipoic acid, and that's pretty much the basics for having the mitochondria make energy. So that's kind of an easy one for people to do. That's super important. I'm not sure if that's maybe the answer here, but to me that's fundamental. You want energy for the body, and so those are key factors to it. Mitochondria are incredibly vulnerable to oxidative stress, which means free radical damage, toxins, and so on. So keep your food source clean, as best you can. And we have, luckily nowadays, available all kinds of good foods in farmers markets and so on. So and pick and choose that. If it's pretty much in a box in a plastic bag that's been processed, just try to avoid that. Again, I mentioned, eating healthy is inexpensive. People think, I can't afford organic food. Eating processed food is expensive. Eating healthy food, even if it's not organic, is still better than processed food. And it's very inexpensive. So trying to avoid, the free radicals, your environment in your house, trying to use, toxic cleaners and detergents. Watch what you put in your skin. With COVID, I used to just cringe when people would use hand sanitizer, especially on their children. Basically, you absorb things through your nose, you absorb things through your GI tract and through your skin. So if you wouldn't eat it or drink it, don't put it on your skin. Like hand sanitizer is basically poison. So, watch your environment. So you're trying to, it's sort of easy to control. When you get a new, I bought a camper recently to go out and explore our country, which is wonderful. I had to air that thing out for like a month, to get all the off gassing out of that thing. Mm. So watch those exposures too. And the trick is, not to get caught up in every single ad, because every single ad is very convincing. You read or you hear the sales pitch. It's like, well, I need that vitamin. I need that vitamin. Go with the basics. For starters, I guess. Before I'd say start. That'd be something that anyone can do, and we all have access to it. If that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, that was a deep dive into it, to be honest, and offered a lot of valuable information, especially kind of like the nutshell, the core of what your body needs to have that energy. And again, it's like the staying with nature and again, just honoring what makes sense as far as like what's practical and and to keep it simple in a way, like as far as like self-educating, it's keep it simple. I like what you said about eating local, eating regionally, and seasonally, a lot of value with that. Again, and farmers markets, supporting your farmers markets. Yeah, that was a lot of valuable information there. And I am sure that it is easier. Our listeners can agree that it is easy to get swept away by ads and all the marketing, and that's what they're built to do, is to lure you. But the idea of keeping it simple, and just understanding the thing about energy that you said, it's that we are energy. And it's about the quality of our energy, and that directly connects to the quality of our foods. And what most people don't understand is that when you are eating these, pseudo foods, this fast food, and the not organic, and the things that are, boxed and in these packaging and processed foods, they aren't nutritionally dense, and therefore you need more of it, and you're actually meaning that your body requires actual nutrition, and it's putting your body under a state of strain just to process that, just to intake it and break it down. And so it's much more affordable in the long run to actually give yourself a proper portion of viable, like, living food.
Yeah.
Right? Like, at the end of the day.
I've been on, camping trips, or, like, let's say, Memorial Weekend adventures with friends and family, and I look at how much food people eat. It's like, oh my God. And of course, when you have the big scramble, sure, it tastes good, but you watch people afterwards, and they sit down for an hour or two and just try and process all that. Because it, digestion takes, you have to make, hydrochloric acid, you have to make enzymes, break this down, you have to move it along. It's an incredibly energy consuming process. I want to say, gosh, I don't quote my number, but let's just say 80% of the energy produced goes into digestion, because it's not just, breaking the food down, but trying to absorb the food. And your immune system is hugely involved with that, trying to keep the bad guys out of your body. It takes a lot of energy. So the more raw food is, the more intact the nutrition. The vitamins are more in a absorbable state, but also there's enzymes in food, that are already there. You have to manufacture them. And then fats. I kind of forgot about fats. Fats are your primary fuel source. The other thing is carbohydrate. It's more fat, and there's a lot of fats out there. I think probably the two best ones are going to be tallow and probably coconut oil. You want to try to pretty much avoid all your seed oils. They've all been hydrogenated or polyunsaturates, and they're really not good for us. So again, nature, so olive oil I think is a good choice too, and avocado oil as well. But for the most part, I just use coconut oil and tallow, because it's a saturated fat. It doesn't go rancid sitting on your kitchen counter for a month or so. It's a very high flash point, so you can cook with it, and it won't degrade. So fats are a good fuel source. They had a bad rap years ago with that get rid of the madness, whatever that person was saying about getting rid of fats. Fats are good, and they fill you up, and so you're not eating a bunch of empty calories. You have a good fuel source that's going to hold you for a long period of time, keep your blood sugar stable. So, I'm still a fan of fish oils. You have to watch your sources and your fatty acids and so on. But yeah, fats are important too.
Yeah, a well balanced, as far as that goes, is like, balance it out, and listen to your body. I mean, there's a lack of connection to our body wisdom these days, right? And so it's one of those, it's kind of, well, basically more and more scientific research is pointing to the body's inherent intelligence and its regenerative capacity, especially being amplified through the connection to nature. What I've noticed is a lot of people, like, really disconnecting from their body, and they go to a certain diet or protocol, and they're just doing it and not really necessarily tuning into the body response, right? They're doing the fad thing, or they're doing they're doing certain things that for a certain amount of time, whether it's going vegan or vegetarian or paleo or any of these other Mediterraneans. But, I think there's a big part of listening to how your body is responding and not just saying, well, this feels good, now, what does it feel still good, 15 days, 30 days, 60 days in, like to really tune into your body wisdom. And again, like the nature of how your vitality is generated. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, look at the planet. I mean, for me, it was always like, so who lives the longest in this earth? The parts of Japan and the Mediterranean. There was a Tibetan tribe. I can't remember what they were
The
called.
blue zones.
Yeah, they live a very long time. 118 is not an unheard of number up there. And they have, again, very simple life. So I like a good place to start with the Mediterranean diet, the paleo diet. Right now, the carnivore diet is big. It kind of works because you're eating a lot of fat, a lot of proteins. Your blood sugar is very stable, and you're removing a lot of the things that people become allergic to. So if people feel better on that diet, I think it should be more balanced than that, with some vegetables and some fruits. So I like the Mediterranean diet. I think it's a good place to start, or even the paleo diet, because paleo basically kind of means, what would you find in nature? And so like the Bushmen of the Kalahari, people think of them as hunters and gatherers, and they're hunters, and they go out and get a giraffe or an elephant, and they eat that thing. When they actually studied them, they mostly were eating vegetables, roots especially. Meat was a celebration, kind of a rarity. So, and again, I'm not against eating animal protein. I do it, and I feel better when I do. So I'm not a big organ consumer. I'm like the liver and kidney, because their filtration organs are trying to get rid of toxins, and they also have a lot of hormones in there and things that I really don't want in my body. So I'm not big into that, but some good Alaskan, wild caught salmon. Some, if you can get, fresh game, great, but at least organic beef. Another kind of rule of thumb that I like to share is, if you can't eat it raw, you shouldn't be eating it. So they're like pork, you can't eat that raw. You probably want to maybe avoid that one, or scavenger animals like chicken, but you can eat raw, salmon, raw tuna, raw beef, raw lamb, raw all animals, and you can eat raw vegetables, and really can't eat, raw rice kernels. In nature, you wouldn't find dairy, because you can find some lactating mama elk. She's not going to give you that milk. You pretty much die trying. So think about
Good point.
Yeah. So
It's a great point. What would you say the value of like a sense of adventure, or as far as to someone's well-being, like a sense of like where does that play into like our well-being?
well, I've got kind of a long answer for you if you want to hear it. So I'll just do it. You can cut me off. But I didn't go on tangents. But when I was young, I think at age 14, I got into martial arts. I got a chance to have a few very good instructors who taught me how to meditate, about chi, manipulation a little bit. My mother was a theosophist, and back then it was transcendental meditation, so I got to learn from that. And I was a Bruce Lee fan, so I tried to get my body into Bruce Lee shape and worked hard towards that, and had a good diet, and I got into different spiritual, pathways, I guess. Tried to learn a little bit of Buddhism, a little bit of Taoism, and a little bit of Bhagavad Gita and Christianity, and trying to learn things, and develop myself spiritually, which was good. I do think we all have innate, like you mentioned a bit, innate intelligence, innate wisdom of what's right and what's wrong. But I was at a lecture from this guy, Christopher Ha. He was supposedly an enlightened yogi. And the talk that night was, he was doing chakra toning. And so he was a very soft-spoken man, but he would do these tones that were powerful, and you could feel, your throat chakra vibrate to that specific tone, or your heart chakra, and so on. It was like, and I was there, and it was a great talk. But at the end, he was talking about kind of the goal of an enlightened yogi is to pierce the veil. He called it. You become one with the universe. He described it as being everywhere all at once and knowing everything all at once. And once you pierce that veil, you've kind of achieved your goals as a yogi. And I thought, well, I want to do that. So I spent a lot of time and a lot of years trying to achieve that. And a turning point for me was I had spent, a good amount of time purifying my body and doing things like trying to control myself by putting things through my arm and silly stuff and sitting under waterfalls and all that. And I finally thought, today's the day. I mean, I'm ready to pierce the veil. And I went up to, I remember it's up in Snoqualmie Pass. I think it was Red Mountain. Picked a mountain, looked, kind of Buddha-like place. And I hiked up there and I sat there. It was about noon and I meditated and I'm just this is it. I'm going to become a God, one with the universe thing. Sat there for hours and hours and pretty much, like, nothing's happening, but kept on trying. And it's getting towards the evening and you get a little bored and like, come on, I'm not piercing this veil here. I did everything right. And I kind of got sidetracked and I was just looking out at the sunset and it was just absolutely incredible. It was almost kind of heartwarming. And I somehow got into my mind, I got all those people over in Seattle, they're probably in their cars right now and they're missing this. And I felt sad and I felt, this kind of joy of witnessing this. And what kind of hit me, what kind of got me is from all that was, if there's a soul, which I hope there is, I believe there is, or there's not, that's one or the other. That's all there is. But what's a guarantee is we're all going to die, so either we are here for a purpose or we are going to use this as a stepping stone, we're going to go in further, or we're going to die. And so it's like, well, then why be here? And to me, it was like, I'm going to be here to be here. If we have this incredible planet, we have all these incredible things that we can do and experience. And so rather than preparing myself to be an eventual enlightened being, which I'm going to get to no matter what, or not, that you're going to, it's kind of guaranteed, so, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, try and better yourself and be open to, introspection and spiritual development. But I changed my focus. And for me, it was, to enjoy what we have, enjoy creating good food, enjoy, to love somebody, enjoy, for me, there's almost no better joy than riding my dirt bike full speed in a single track. Talk about getting in the zone and getting chi. I get in with that and I feel fantastic. I feel alive, getting to experience, like in sunsets or nature, whatever brings you joy, art, people experience art. So I still try and listen to my heart and I know energy is not just, the ATP energy, but the energy of the body is real. And I can talk about that a little bit too. But I've just tried to really trying just to be taking advantage of this gift that we have, and with that comes responsibility. You shouldn't pollute the thing, pick up your garbage and don't wreck it for future generations, try and be a good steward and take advantage of it and share it. And so that's kind of where I'm at, as far as in the words of Jean-Luc Picard, I'm a Trekkie. In one episode, he said, I've come to realize that there are more days behind than there are ahead, or there's fewer days ahead than there are behind now. And so, I don't want to waste them. I know I'm in my 60s. I can still do things. I can still ride my dirt bike. I can still enjoy love. And, I want to take advantage of that. When I get to the point where I can't, then I'll shift and, try and, focus on other things that are part of this life experience here on the planet and adapt and evolve,
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Again, very, very deep answer. And I love the connection of the thread of life and the kind of like the hero's journey, like the arc of being kind of socially conditioned, that there's this path that we to fulfillment that we're supposed to take. And what does that look like? Is it a spiritual path? Is it a mental, physical, emotional? I mean, it's implied that, we're to find this sense of purpose and, create a happy life. And yet there are so many distractions, and it does take us, and each of us are on our own hero's journey. And it does take us to shed some layers and to have these experiences that bring us to these epiphanies of like what's really important and what really activates a sense of joy and a sense of connection and a sense of worthiness in the world. And it's I think because you are someone that exudes adventure to me, like, because I've known you for so many years, and the sense of adventure and the connection to like vitality, like one's own vitality. And I guess, to each their own, they each has their own way of experiencing that or navigating that. But I think life itself is the ultimate adventure, like that we are soul or spirit, or source choosing this, and to really like give it a go, like to really kind of, let the sweat and the stench and like all of the, breathless moments, really, carry you through to whatever the end will be. And by the way, we're not promised the next breath. So, really being in this now, and reveling in it is, to me, so important as far as like to our emotional well-being. And I think it also speaks to the capacity for our presence. Like if we can only really do that when we're really present with ourselves and really present with one another. That's where we can really enjoy, life.
And it's experience life. And it's not about just joy or, adventure. I mean, people think of pain and heartache as being a negative thing. And it's like, it's not. I mean, if you're infatuated with somebody and just head over heels in love and you get dumped, it hurts. But that's part of the spectrum of life. And, you can go through life and, guard yourself and shut yourself off to something like that. But to me, it's like, I mean, I've had my heart broken. It's like, I got lucky enough to have my heart broken. I got to be, in a situation where I was that, enthralled with someone, and it hurt, but I got to experience that, or even injury. I've had my fair share. And like my wrist, for example, I broke it during, ironically, paragliding safety class. And like a knucklehead, I got it casted. I kept on working and it never healed properly. It's been kind of a lifelong deal. Ironically, after 35 years or 40 years, I just fixed it by breaking it again. But the point was that, I learned so much from this limitation, this injury, and also what works, what doesn't work. So I was able to help other folks. Like, it's like when you break your navicular bone, you take it seriously, And so would I rather not have that injury? Yes, but the knowledge I gained from it is worth it, So there's a lot to be learned from pain and from heartache too. It's all part of it. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well said.
Um,
Yeah. Well said. And I do believe that our challenges bear the seed of our gifts. Like they provoke us to be innovative. They provoke us to grow, and they provoke us to muster up, the best that's within us to overcome things, and to recognize the beauty that's within us. In a way, and to be able to hold compassion for others. If we don't have, one of my favorite gurus or mentors, Richard Rudd, says suffering is actually grace. Like it's leading you to grace. You wouldn't know grace without suffering. So
Okay.
yeah.
That's part of what we first started off talking about, nutrition and our bodies. I mean, I get so sad when I see somebody who has not taken care of themselves, who is unhealthy, maybe grossly overweight, and that's their path. I'm not judging them, but there's just so much you miss out on, because you can't walk, you can't do things, go to places that are wonderful. So for me, at least, keeping this best I can in shape allows me to experience what these gifts that we have. I could just imagine God up there, if there's a God, looking down and going, man, I give these guys big waves and sunsets and food and all these wonderful things, and they're sitting there just preaching to me all day long. Like, no, take advantage of that ball down there and enjoy it, yeah, or at least take advantage of it,
Yeah. Hence the sense of adventure and
yeah,
just being grateful for life. And I do feel like that's an intrinsic part of our overall sense of well-being. Um, you know, and you've enjoyed a successful career. You have a successful marriage. You have friendships that have spanned decades and a life full of adventures that fills the room with amazing stories. For as long as I've known you, you've got a phenomenal sense of humor. And I'm just curious, what are you most grateful for? And what would you have done differently?
I've done a lot of things differently. But I wouldn't give up on the mistakes that I made because I learned from them, so I mean, my greatest and most grateful for, to me, it's my friends, my people I love and care for sure. Yeah, it's so hard to say. Um, there's just so many things, I'm grateful to be able to serve, that's rewarding. It's gives you some purpose. Grateful for my life. I got to live it mostly how I want to live it. It's not always easy. You have to work hard. I mean, it's not like I had this blessed existence. So I mean, working hard and reaping the benefits of that, whether it's health or whether it's financial or creating a place that I want to live. Where I wanted to work. For me, it wasn't when I got into practice. It wasn't what's the most profitable place to set up a practice. Where there's no competition. It was always like I want to live where I want to live and I want to work where I live. So I chose to create that there, even though it was 14 cars within a mile of my office. It wasn't the best choice for maybe business sense, but it was where I wanted to live. So you can make that happen. Not doing a good job answering your question. So
No, I hear you. It's like you were thoughtful and intentional about what you did, and you focused your decisions on what felt inspired and aligned for you.
yeah, I guess just even talking to you, but you're very complimentary, and we've been friends for a long time. And I do feel probably the most thankful for my friends, my people in my life that I cherish. I've had a good core group of people that have been around me, like you said, for decades and decades, you included. And I feel lucky to have them respect me enough and love me enough to be part of my life, So I'm very grateful for that. I've got wonderful friends, and you got to do wonderful things together, and it all enhances your life. I think you have to you can pick and choose your friends too, as far as who you hang out with, because that will amplify or it'll bring you up, it'll bring you down too. So you can't love everybody, and everybody can't love you, and that's okay. You love who you love, and take advantage of that. I just saw something recently. I don't think it was Tony Robbins, but he said basically it was um, let me see your friends, and I will tell you how happy you are and successful you will be in life. And who you choose to surround yourself with will impact you in a great way. And when someone else is in that kind of that same mindset, it just amplifies. It's not all you doing. It's a kind of a not a group thing, but it opens you up to better experiences and enhances our own lives. We can share how to make different kinds of food. We can share different places to go. And have better experiences that things we wouldn't know about without having good people in our lives,
Yeah, good people are enriching for sure. And
Yeah.
I'm honored to be in that group, in that category for you, for sure. Let's shift gears.
Okay.
Let's play a game.
Sure.
This is the segment where you're going to pick 3 numbers, and the number is associated to a word. So when you say the number, I'll tell you what the word is, and you just share what comes to mind about that word, or what that word means to you, or whatever comes to mind. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. 1 to 10, or what's my range?
Yeah. 1 to 100.
1 to 100?
Yep. I got a whole list right here.
You have 100 topics? Okay.
No, 100 words. Yep.
Okay. 99.
99. Let me scroll that one. Ooh, okay. Dedication.
Well, I think dedication, to achieve things, takes effort, takes discipline. Could be a degree, could be, building a home, could be relationship, a marriage, takes dedication. And so I think having some degree of self-control, to have a goal, if you don't have a goal, you don't know where you're going to go. You can't get anywhere. And I was very young. I think I was, again, like 14ish, whatever it was. I made a list of 100 goals for my life, things I wanted to do, and I never showed it to anybody. I had it in my under my sock drawer in my dresser. And they weren't things like, actually be a millionaire was in there, but not stupid things like be president of the United States, but things I wanted to achieve. Things like swim in every ocean of the world. Swim with a dolphin. Drive a race car on a racetrack, and things I wanted. And actually, my wife Brenda was on that list, believe it or not, back when she didn't even know I existed. And so having goals, one lets your mind be open to achieving those goals, and it does take discipline to get there for sure. And there's a book called The Secret. I don't know if you heard that book. I'm sure you've heard about that book years ago, and it was more the premise of that, whatever you dwell on, you will manifest. And I don't think it quite works that way. I think our brain is amazing at what it can take in. Right now, I'm not aware of it, but I'm feeling the pressure of this sofa, or left seat on my rear end right now. And my body's taking in the slight breeze in the room right here. The temperature.
I'm going to pause you. Your iPhone went to sleep.
Uh-oh.
You might have to tap it.
Am I back on?
Yep.
Okay. So back to I guess was it discipline or dedication, or what was it?
Dedication.
So, I'm going to be a bit on a bird walk here, but you have goals. Again, the neurophysiology, your brain has to shed tons of information, data, because it can't take it all in. It has to get rid of stuff and has to know what's important for the moment. And so if you're not aware of what you're focused on or what your goal is, you'll discard opportunity. You'll when you have that goal, your subconscious or your whatever it may be, your conscious mind will pick up on something like, hey, I can add that to my goal. That will be helpful. So it makes your body more aware of opportunity and makes it then manifest. And again, having the discipline to stick with something. Some of the degrees I got were not easy, but you hang in there, and then they pay off. A friend of mine who was Mormon, he was not Mormon, his brother was Mormon. He said, short-term pain leads to long-term gain, which kind of, I took it as, it's easy to get indulgent or to go for the fun route or the easy route, but then you end up maybe an alcoholic or, blowing everything and losing your friends and family in the process. But, having that discipline to stay focused, as well as knowing where you're going, you can achieve more than what you might think possible.
Love it. Love it. Well said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything worth having is going to take and require some sort of dedication.
Yeah. And to maintain it too. I
Right.
mean, I love my dirt bike, but I got to change oil on that thing. I gotta keep it clean, and I gotta take care of that thing. And if I take care of it, it brings me joy, So
Interesting. Yeah. Right. Sustaining,
yeah.
sustaining things. Yeah. All right. Pick another number.
7,
Oh, that would be easy. Oh, fulfillment.
fulfillment. We kind of touched on it. I think um, it's easy to think, a Rolex watch might give you fulfillment, or looking at what other people have, and they look fulfilled, or they look successful, or they look happy. And I got the gift and the rare opportunity, not maybe rare, but for me, I felt very lucky to have met in the 30 years I was in practice, thousands of people. I mean, thousands in all walks of life, rich, poor, successful, on hard times, Christian, Buddhist, atheist, you name it. I met them, different, preferences of lifestyle, all of it. And uh, everyone is pretty much the same. Everyone, matter, you think this. I mean, I got to meet some people who I could name names, and you go, wow, they have the same stuff everybody else has. Um, they have the same challenges. They want the same things. Um, so fulfillment isn't only about stuff. I had a patient who was very successful. He had 14 homes. He pulled up in his brand new cool Porsche every time, beautiful Porsche, and had the watch and so on. And you had a really beautiful girlfriend at the time, and kind of had it all back, by I guess U.S. standards and means and whatever it was. In 2007, the market crashed, and he lost everything. He was leveraged, and I think out of all his millions, he ended up with $300,000. That was it, and he couldn't afford to live in Kirkland with that kind of money. So he moved to Brazil and bought a condo and moved down there because he could afford it back at the time. And he came back up later, or maybe a year later, and he goes, "Yeah, Eric, I lost it all, and I cannot tell you how freeing it was to get rid of my chainsaw, to get rid of my Porsche, to not have to maintain these houses and all this stuff. You know, my day consists of where to have my coffee, where to take my Spanish lesson, and which beach I want to go to. And I have nothing, and I have everything. He put that 300 grand in the bank, and down in Brazil, they were paying 15% interest. Is I make $30,000 a year, and I live like a king. So he's fulfilled with losing everything. So yeah, it's what I think if you that kind of I don't know if fulfillment or peace or joy is the right way to describe it, but I think you know it when you're there. And there's always going to be challenges, always going to be things that going to try and maybe work on or work towards, but not always. I guess being fulfilled would be not always waiting for that day. Today's the day. And it's gonna be gone. Tomorrow. So being happy with where you're at the moment is probably the biggest thing I'd say for fulfillment.
Again, well said. And yeah, it's like seizing the moment and being able to be present and value what is,
Mm-hmm.
and recognize what is bringing you out of a state, what pulls you out of a state of joy and state of contentment. And yeah, I like that story speaks volumes. And we've heard it in many different ways of this, that it's not the material things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more about it is about the non-tangible in a
Mm-hmm.
way. It is about that.
Yeah, and they say it's the journey, not the end. And I mean, I love road trips. I mean, and I like going on road trips where there's no agenda. I don't know where we're gonna stay. Yeah, I've been no hotel to go to. It's like hop in the camper or a truck and let the camper unpop and go out and maybe set a goal of Moab, but no time frame to get there. And if we go somewhere else, end up somewhere else, great. And because of that, you meet people along the way that you wouldn't have met. and they give you ideas, and you go to places that you never would have known. And it's you know, you don't need a whole lot of money to do it, some gas money, and and it's the journey, and appreciating the journey when you're in it versus waiting to save up for some big cruise trip or something like that and you get on there and it's like, yeah, it's the simple stuff.
Yeah, and the and flowing with the organic things that are presenting, and like again being here now and responding to the now, rather than trying to control and plan and basically construct happiness in a way. That seems kind of silly. Okay, last number.
50. Let's go in the middle.
50. Okay. Laughter.
That's a good one.
Mhm.
I laugh pretty hard sometimes, and
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I think it's one of the best things there is. You can be with friends that make you laugh, and if you can laugh at yourself, people, that's a big one. I've screwed up plenty of times and crashed plenty of things, and you can laugh at that. I made plenty of mistakes in life, and I'll always laugh at them. But I think laughter is again kind of but it's food for the soul. It's joy. It's physiological. It's hormones and neurotransmitters that are all kind of coming together, and and bringing up your energy level and vibration. I back this is a while ago saw you may have heard of Kirlian photography, where they film your aura. Most of it's fake, by the way, but there's a squid machine. Where was that developed? I think it was Stanford University, I believe. Don't quote me on that. They actually able to do a real one, and they had different examples of one was a guy eating a cheeseburger, and each bite of the burger he took, his field actually shrank a little bit. And so it turns out that we have, you mentioned energy, everything is energy, everything is vibration. And so we've got iron atoms in our body, we've got proteins that make up collagen, and calcium and zinc, and all these different elements that combine to make proteins, to make our muscles, to make our brain, make our bodies, and these fats and things. Well, they all have to work together. So everything has a frequency to it. And we know that the atoms, hydrogen atom has a certain frequency to it. Well, it has to work together, or we just fall apart. And so it turns out our vibrational frequency is around 700 angstroms. And turns out freshly picked organic live fruits and vegetables are freshly picked have around 900 angstroms of vibration, whereas cooked meat is around 400 or 500. And so this guy eating this burger, which is basically dead food, it was sucking his energy down while he was trying to eat this thing, because he had to make the acids and the enzymes and lipases and proteases to get the energy back out of it. Then they had another picture of a woman meditating, and after a while you could barely see her. She was in a state of bliss or kind of laughterish. They had another one with a mother and child, and the child was running around the mother. And you could see that there was a connection there together. And the last one was an old man sitting in a chair, and he had a pretty low vitality field around him. And his dog, his puppy, hopped up in his lap, and it grew. And I think that goes with laughter too. That vibration of laughter. I'm not sure what frequency it is or specifically, but I think you always feel better afterwards, and it probably releases some endorphins and things that are not just fun, but they're healthful. So don't take yourself too seriously. And laugh at your own shortcomings, and laugh when you can laugh. Turn the TV off. Don't watch the news, and
Agree.
yeah.
Yeah. And you've always been a very, comical person, and very much like for me, the life of the party in a way where you bring that to the room, you bring that to the occasion. And I mean, we've enjoyed some can't breathe, laughter.
And that's good. Everyone, but we were in Leavenworth last weekend meeting some old friends, Scott and Trish. I haven't seen them for quite a while. We were at this bar, had a few beers, and we were telling stories. And Brenda walked away, and Scott and I, I'm not sure how we got in this topic. We got started telling, it was just started laughing, and pretty soon laughing harder and harder to the point where we couldn't stop laughing. And Brenda came back, didn't no idea what we were talking about, but she began to laugh, and then pretty soon the entire restaurant or the bar area was we were all kind of looking at them, and they started laughing. So it was that power of good laughter can radiate, and the pheromones you make with those emotions can affect people in a positive way too. So it's a good disease to spread.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Thank you. Yeah, and and it's contagious in a way. Laughter is contagious, and it's a good thing to share, so to speak. Okay, last question. If I were to hand you a microphone and every heart on planet Earth could hear it,
Man, what would I say?
what would you say?
Well, I don't know. There's this so much I want to say, like for me, what comes to mind actually is war. Wars where a few people have a large number of people kill people they don't even know. So and any war to me is just is horrible, and the fact that we tolerate a few people to dictate, who should go out and shoot somebody, to me is inexcusable. And if I was drafted and had to go to war and I had to go and shoot somebody, I have no problem, with bad people. Someone who's a horrible person and rapes and pillages, that's one thing. But to shoot somebody that who's there because I'm there, and doesn't want to be there, it's so fundamentally wrong. It goes against everything that everyone should resist. And so just don't tolerate a few people telling you what to do or what we should do, and compromise we know in our heart is right or wrong. It's that bugs me in the world. It's so unnecessary, all this stuff that's going on with people hurting other people.
Make love, not war.
Do unto others, that kind of stuff. But you have to stand up for it too. You have to say no. I mean, remember COVID? I don't want to get too political, but I had to say no. Like, no, I'm not doing that. And it wasn't easy. I mean, I got persecuted for it, but as it turned out, it was the right choice. So, you have to hold your ground, and stand for what's right.
Gotcha.
Probably not the spiritual thing you wanted to hear, but that's I guess what I think it would change a lot of things. If there's no war, big waste of time and money, and heartache.
No war. No more war.
Yeah.
We're bigger than that. We're more creative than that. I think as human beings, it's time to step into what is I've come to know is, in my opinion, the most essential aspect of the human experience, is to recognize ourselves, life, and one another as literally sacred, and to conduct ourselves accordingly. And so, in a nutshell, that's what you're saying. It, to me, is in a nutshell, it's that life is sacred, and we're here to celebrate it, not to take it away.
Yep, exactly. Respect them. Let them lead their own paths. Might be different choices and different beliefs, but that's their path, and honor them for that, and don't judge them or persecute them for it. Let them lead that life.
Beautiful. It was really sweet to spend some time with you today and to have this conversation.
I'm used to reading about nutrition, and I can do that, in other health issues, but to talk about myself and kind of a new experiment, my own thoughts is kind of a nice thing to kind of be almost forced to do. We're not put on the spot, but I'm glad you asked me to do this. It was good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, and again, thank you for your time and your wisdom. It comes from a place of very practical, lived experience, and very valuable. And I'm sure our listeners will have lots of things to take away from the conversation. And yeah, I very much appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll close the sesh for now, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, love you. Thank you.
Right back at you, brother. Take special care of you until the next time.
Sounds good. All right.
Aloha.